In this video, I'm going to walk you through a unique method that'll help you make at least $100,000 on top of your job, starting completely from scratch. And let me start off by saying that you've been lied to by all the so-called business gurus online. Most of these people say that you need either a unique or novel business idea, or a big audience to sell to, or a heavy seed or angel investment, or they ask you to quit your job and go all in if you have to make it happen. What if I told you that's all BS? What if I told you that you can not only get started with a simple but super profitable business right away today, but also scale it without a huge audience or a massive investment? And most importantly, you can do it alongside your day job with less than 10 hours of effort every week, so that you don't risk things by quitting a job and actually end up making some serious money in the process. Now, how do I know that's possible? Because I not only started my first business while I was employed at my brutal consulting job at Deloitte, but I also scaled my second business to multi-six figures after moving to Canada. Again, all while staying employed, getting paid, and using my paycheck as the VC funding or means to invest into my businesses. So that experience, plus the method we used to create wins for over 20 personal brands and clients at Unimedia, my media business, helped me perfect a framework I'm calling I2R, and now I'm teaching you how to use it to become an entrepreneur too. This is episode 2 of I2R, Idea to Revenue, where I walk you through a practical, proven and tested plan to become an entrepreneur alongside your day job and hit your financial goals without burning out or blowing up your life. If you haven't watched episode 1 yet, go check that out first. I'm linking it right here. It gives you the big picture, my story, the results we have delivered for our clients, and most importantly, why it's so important for you to build something of your own right now. And I can assure you one thing. If you watch this video entirely, you'll walk away with clear steps to get started right away with your entrepreneurial journey. Okay, so before we get into it, if you'd like more details, specifics, and the inner workings of what it takes to be an entrepreneur, then you can sign up for my free 15-day email series. It's super practical. It provides you with a step-by-step framework that's going to go hand in hand with I2R, and the feedback has been incredible. It's been overwhelmingly positive. Link is in the description. So where do we start? Well, at the core of the model I've used is what most businesses and creators use to build super profitable online businesses. An irresistible offer that your ideal customer can't refuse.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Okay, so let's start with the part that most people get wrong when they try to start something of their own. They basically skip the foundation. Because most people are excited about the idea of becoming an entrepreneur and selling something, and in that process, making money and finding success. And so most people jump right into content, branding, selling, but solid businesses, start with the right offer. And so every profitable business is built on one thing: an irresistible offer your ideal customer can't refuse. It's basically what I mentioned earlier. And so for that, we need to get laser focused. It's basically one person, one problem, one solution, and one outcome. And if we focus on all of these 4, then we get 100K. And that's because clarity attracts serious buyers. Now, for instance, that's how I build I2R too. If you look at one person, one problem, one solution, and one outcome, you'll see that in my case, the one person was an ambitious 9-to-5er, in their 30s or maybe even late 20s, who knows that they're meant for more. And their problem that they're facing is that they don't know how to start and scale something of their own without blowing up their life. And then the solution I came up with is basically a step-by-step system to go from idea to their first 10K month in less than 6 months. And finally, the outcome is basically that first 10K month or 100K year on top of their job. I think that's the level of focus I want for you. That's the level of focus I think all entrepreneurs need to have in the early stages. And I think then things just start compounding from there. And that's because, the best products and services, almost all of them started this way. And so the goal is simple. You need to solve a specific problem for the specific person to create a specific outcome. That's it. And so this does 2 powerful things, right? You start deeply understanding who you're serving, you know exactly who you're serving, you speak their language, and your message starts feeling personal to your ideal customer. But at the same time, there's also natural repulsion. Because you've gotten so specific, you naturally repel people who are not a fit, which is actually a good thing because wrong people, get filtered out automatically. There are fewer objections and higher quality buyers. And that's exactly what we want. So that's exactly what happened with I2R2. That's the same way I approach I2R as well. It all started with what I learned with over 20 clients at Unimedia. And then I put it into a framework that I thought could potentially help people at scale. But before I released it or tried to sell it, what I ended up doing was I spoke to over 42 aspiring entrepreneurs as part of scaling I2R. And the ones that resonated the hardest were always the same type of people. It's basically someone who's ambitious, who's employed, and stuck at, how do I start? And just having those conversations built rapport with a bunch of ideal customers. And I got like quite a bit of feedback from these different people. And then based on that, I kind of reshaped the offer a little bit. I focused a little bit more on the mission statement and specifically went after examples only focused for those people. And then finally, out of the 42 people I spoke to, there were a couple of people that raised their hands and said, I'd love to work with you on this. And I was willing to give them a massive discount. So I started it off with a tiny beta group. I sold it to them and I actually took them through the program, got more feedback, and I refined it again. And I think that's the level of focus that makes an offer work, because it becomes the backbone of everything else you do. And so when you define your one ideal customer, it defines what you offer, who you serve, how you market, basically who are you building the product around, what's the kind of messaging that's going to be used to get the, the offer out there. And also, what's the kind of content that they consume, what are they looking for, which platforms do they reside on, and what actually grabs their attention. And this is why getting really, really specific about your ideal customer is the backbone of any offer, or any product, or any service. Yeah, most people skip this part. They jump right into, creating content, designing logos, building website, posting randomly, and then wonder why they're not finding any traction or why there's no takers or no one buying their product. If there's one thing that you can take away from this entire video, it's this particular section. You need to focus on your ideal customer before you do anything else. On the flip side, you might be also wondering if the, logical part of your brain's thinking, shouldn't I cater to more people so that I get more clients? True, but humans are more complex than that, right? There are different fears, there's different motivations, there's different language that different people use. And on paper, that sounds smart too, right? It's like saying more people equals more money. But you've probably heard of the saying that if you cater to everyone, you basically cater to no one. And so in the beginning, I want you to pick one specific lane and get uncomfortably specific. This is why they keep talking about niches and, really niching down. So get uncomfortably specific and then scale after the offer, the MVP works. Yeah, so now you might be wondering, this is all great, but you said I can get started today itself. But what if I don't have anything to sell is what you're thinking. I'm here to tell you that you can start today without a new idea, degree, or audience. And that's because the most overlooked starting point is to start with what you already know. Basically, ask yourself this question. What do I know well enough to teach or guide someone through something? And I can tell you that this is one of the fastest growing business models today. It's basically online education, consulting, coaching, and this industry is exploding at the moment. It's projected to cross over $1 trillion by 2030. And honestly, I don't want you missing that wave because of just how simple this business model is. You don't need to be a guru, you don't need a degree or license, you don't need to know everything. What you need is basically clarity in what you offer, your lived experience, and a structure to the program. I can tell you now, this is not a trend, it's a societal shift. You might have seen a lot of people talking online about digital products. This is basically that. And right now with AI, that there's an abundance of information, right? There's information everywhere. So what people really want right now is guidance, clear steps, basically support from someone who's a few steps ahead and who's actually been through it all. And that's what people are willing to pay for. Okay, so now that we know what you're trying to sell, you might be wondering, how does this become an offer? So basically, your knowledge might be hiding in your job or your past work. It's maybe a skill you've practiced for years. It could be a hobby. It could be a problem you solved for yourself numerous times around. And it could also be some area that you have an interest in. I want you to reframe this, right? Because a lot of people think that, oh, I know this already and there's nothing special about this and no one's going to pay me for this. But to be fair, what feels nothing special to you is actually a real pain point for someone else. If you package it correctly, it becomes an offer. And then, like I said earlier, if you have an irresistible offer, there are always going to be takers. Okay, so to prove that point and to show you why you don't need credentials and you only need results, let me actually show you a few examples from my own world. We had a client helping people in their 40s to improve their nutrition without dieting. We had another client who was focused on business communication. Her name is Poonima, and she helped professionals speak clearer and present better and have a better impact at their workplace. And then me, Because of my background in podcasting and content strategy, people saw my podcast grow and they were willing to pay me and my team for editing, podcast strategy, content systems, and whatnot. So you'll notice something important, right? There's no podcast certification that I have. I don't have any content strategy degree. And to be fair, like even my other clients, they didn't have any quote unquote formal education or a license per se. People paid them because they saw results, they saw their results, they saw the impact they were making, and they wanted the same outcome. And so the part I want you to focus on is that results beat credentials any day. Actually, yeah, in the previous video, I mentioned how people were ready to pay me to teach pickleball. I ran the numbers and built a quick plan and realized that I could make at least $4,000 in the first month using I2R. So here are some photos or I think some videos, and these are screenshots from some of the games I put up on my Instagram stories. And I remember just in random tournaments or random leagues, there were people who walked up to me and said, hey, how long have you been playing? And so because of my background with racket sports and because I played a lot of badminton and ping pong in the past, pickleball came a little bit more naturally to me. And so when I told them that it's been less than a year since I've been playing, they were pretty, kind of shocked that I've been playing this well, at least according to them. And they were willing to pay me good money for this. So the point I'm trying to make is you don't need credentials. You just need to show results. You just need to show that you're good enough and you can somehow package it in a way that it can help impact their lives. Okay, so knowing all of this, where do we start, right? So these are the questions you should ask yourself. And I've kind of structured this section as finding your ikigai, and you'll see very soon why. But the part I want you to focus on is that all of this is only possible because you are part of the offer. This is the part I want you to really, really focus on. You are the niche. And so the questions you should be asking yourself is, what do I know well enough to teach? What do people naturally ask me for advice? What do I have real world experience on? Even informally, it could be a hobby like I mentioned earlier. It could be something that you're keen on. It's something that you spent a lot of time on. And what are the problems that you have already solved either for yourself or for others that others really struggle with today? And again, something that might seem like plain and simple to you, something that's second nature to you, is not, and I can tell you, is not second nature to most people, and they'll be willing to pay for it provided you package it up the right way. Yeah, so the point is these answers are usually closer than you think, and this is how it comes together as your ikigai. It's basically what you're good at, what people need, and what people pay for, and your offer resides right in the middle. And so asking yourself the right questions ensure that clarity follows, not just for yourself, but also for your ideal customer. And the reason why this matters long term is because, and again, there's a lot of overlap with ikigai here too, is that when your offer sits right in the middle of all these things, it shows that you already have experience. You won't burn out quickly because it's something that you have always done, and you'll naturally get better over time, right? Because yes, this is baseline of what you can do, but the way you start impacting people and the way you start packaging it up, the way I'm talking to you right now about I2R, all of these things came because I was constantly in the weeds thinking about this. And so doing this will ensure that the long game becomes possible. Yeah, so if you're thinking that there's so many others who do the same thing, then let me tell you something that's eye-opening, right? The part that most people underestimate is that your uniqueness is the business. Your uniqueness is the offer. Like I showed you earlier, you sit right among or in between this entire thing you're offering. And so you become the niche, your uniqueness is the business, and so your story, your lived experience, your exact journey, no one else can copy. That's what builds trust. And that's basically your positioning for the offer or the business. And in my case too, with I2R, there are a lot of people online talking about how they can help you start a business. But my experience of starting up in different ways, finally relying on something like this where it's my unfair advantage and things I've done in my own life, and talking about those stories, that's what makes my approach unique. And I'm assuming that's what resonates with what you're watching or listening to right now. And so like Dan Coe mentions, you're not finding a niche, you are the niche. Okay, so now that you know what you can teach, you need to package it up properly. It's basically productizing your skill set, right? And so there's a very important mindset shift that I want you to have here. People don't pay for information, people pay for transformation. And like I mentioned earlier, AI is running rampant, and so you can just pull out your phone, ask a couple of questions and get all the answers you need. And so people can search for anything that they need online. But the part that's missing and something that only you can bring to the table is basically providing a clear transformation. And all of that comes with a strong offer. And a strong offer does three things. It appeals to the right person, it repels the wrong person like I mentioned earlier, and it promises a clear result. And that result is going to be completely focused on that transformation I mentioned earlier. And if one of these is missing, I can tell you that your offer is going to be a weak one. So this is where you have to focus on your ideal customer and come up with a clear result or outcome with your program or what you're planning to offer. And so once you do that, you kind of get the trifecta. And so basically that means that you have a specific audience. In this case, your audience would be your specific lead or your specific customer, them having a specific problem, you providing a specific solution for that problem, which basically means serious buyers. And I think this is where money is made, right? This is where Unimedia's clients saw their biggest breakthroughs. This is the same structure of how I built iTour here. It's simple, it's repeatable, it's proven. And so like I mentioned, with all these examples, it's not just theory, it's tested. You're basically taking your knowledge or your experience, productizing it, getting paid, and then providing the outcome or results to your ideal customer. Okay, so step 3 is basically creating your zero to hero transformation or your zero to hero statement. Like this is focusing on how do we have your entire offer or business in one sentence. It's the zero to hero formula that I call. It's basically something in the form of I help ideal client go from zero state to hero state so they can get basically an emotional or practical outcome. This one sentence becomes perfect for your messaging, it's your pitch, it's your offer, it's basically how your content is going to be created for marketing, and it gives you clarity on who you're targeting. It also gives your ideal audience and your ideal customers clarity on what you offer. And so yeah, when I worked with my initial 42 aspiring entrepreneurs, this single exercise changed everything for them, and it changed everything for me too, because it forced me to get real about, who I was helping, what they want, and what I'm really promising, right? And so the idea is not to build the whole program yet. Like it's very easy for you to sit down, script out an entire program or a course and then just publish it online and then hope someone buys. But so what you don't need to do is don't build the full program yet. Don't over-engineer, don't overthink it. Just define the transformation in a simple outline or simple sentence and then try to talk to people to see whether it resonates with them or not. And again, we'll go into more details about how to validate the hypothesis in episode 3. Okay, so step 4 is kind of like a bonus point, but this pillar, La Mente, directly fuels your marketing later. And so if you nail this once, your marketing starts working for you in ways you can't even imagine. And so when you know your ideal customer, you also know your ideal viewer, which means that your content becomes super specific, the algorithms understand who you're catering to, your engagement starts rising because of that, and then your growth compounds, and then you dominate your micro niche. And so the point I want to really make is that if you have random content, you get random results. But if you have targeted content, you get algorithm domination. But again, like none of that works unless you nail the offer, unless you nail this particular pillar, La Mente. All right, so how long should this take? I would say you just need 1 to 2 days, just one weekend. And so here's how you do it, right? You need to lock yourself in a room, phone on D&D, and go through this video step by step. No multitasking, no overthinking, no perfection. And by Sunday evening, you'll basically have a clear offer, a defined ideal customer, your transformation, your positioning, and clarity that most people take years to find. And so this isn't theory like I mentioned earlier. It's something that my beta group did. It's what my clients have done. It's something that I've done, like Money Coffee is running because of that. And so the results were super evident. But I hope you understand that it's all about the foundation here. That's what La Mente is focused on. It's about really focusing on your customer. It's focusing on your offer so that your marketing, your sales, your positioning, everything else comes back to how much time and how much effort you put into understanding the foundational piece. Well, at this point, if you're wondering, Akash, how do I even know this will work? Well, you don't. Because at this point, your offer is just a hypothesis. What we actually need is real-world validation. Not guessing, not hoping, not overthinking, actual validation. And that's exactly what episode 3 is going to be about. All right, so before we wrap up, If everything you heard today is practical, it made sense, and if you're thinking, damn, this is exactly what I needed, then you might be a good fit for my next cohort. But let me be honest, if you're looking for shortcuts or you're not willing to do the work and hold yourself accountable, please don't apply. I'm super focused on building a tight-knit community of driven, accountable people, and if that's not you, totally fine, it's completely okay. But if you felt aligned with this method, and if you finally see a path that makes sense, then you can DM me on Instagram with the words work with AD. We'll chat and we'll see if you're the right fit. If you'd like to go deeper right away, then you can join my free 15-day email series. It's a practical blueprint for becoming an entrepreneur alongside your full-time job. Link is in the description and it's 100% free. It's always going to be free, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. And if you simply enjoyed this breakdown, then stick around, because episode 3 is where you take your offer and turn it into a transformation your ideal customer cannot say no to. Hit the like button, drop me a comment and subscribe. It helps the channel more than you know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in episode 3.